If you want the new exotic knee pads and the only automatic pistol in the game, then you need to complete this season's Climax Mission. And to get a guaranteed drop, that means Master difficulty. In this video I'm going to show you how to beat it as a solo player and with no modifiers. I'm going to cover strategies for each section that worked for me and also the build that I used to complete it, including one tweak that made all the difference on the final boss fight. Nothing difficult here, just a handful of enemies that you can pick off quickly from behind cover. The challenge with this section are 3 turrets that are powered by mobile generators. What worked for me was to take these out first, which made taking on the waves of warhounds and chungers that come later much easier. As soon as I entered, I ran straight for this generator. If you do take a lot of damage when doing this, then you can rest up for a second behind these tanks. Retrace your steps to the entrance, and once you've picked off any flankers, get up onto this tank. From here you can take out the second generator below whilst you stay in cover. Then it's a mad dash to take out the final generator. Now it's time to focus on the waves of enemies. This includes a wave of warhounds followed up quickly by 3 chungers. There is a ton of cover in the zone, making it not too difficult to work your way through them. Now if you are new to the game, then this is how to take out chungers. Firstly, target their weapon chain. Once this breaks, they will stop firing and kneel to fix it. This exposes the pack on their back, which heals them, and if you are close enough to them, works like a stinger hive. So for a quick kill, destroy this as soon as you can. To finish them off, take out the weapon chain again and focus on one armor piece until it breaks, and you can shoot the exposed enemy underneath. Keep breaking the weapon chain as needed until you've finished them off. This section is broken down into 2 parts. In the first, run across to this barrier and take out the enemies on this side of the zone. There is a sniper in each of the towers which do hit quite hard, so take them out first. Once these enemies are down, the second part will start.
Class Quadcopter detected.
Isaac will announce the entrance of a Quadcopter and 3 red bar enemies will spawn behind you. Take these out as you move back to where you entered this zone. I like to take the Quadcopter out here as there are plenty of high walls for cover, even grills you can shoot through without taking any damage at all. The ammo crate is nearby and the ground enemies that spawn take time to get to you. When they do get to you, take them out and then continue to focus on the Quadcopter. Don't forget it's 5 weak points and do avoid those rockets. They hurt even with plenty of protection from elite mods on. Once it is down, you will face a few tanks, a warhound and a chunger, but nothing that bad. But before we do, a quick aside. The YouTube algorithm does a great job of making sure you see less of this sort of content and more of, well, this guy. So help me fight back. Hit the subscribe button so you can always find me. This section breaks down into 3 parts. In the first, just use the choke point as you enter the zone to take out the enemies. You have an ammo crate here, making it ideal for this. In the second part, you will need to hack a communication relay on the right. As soon as you do, 2 enemies will spawn, followed very shortly by 2 chungers. Massive has sprung a couple of sneaky surprises with this section. While you're focusing on the chungers, 2 red bar enemies will spawn behind you, which you'll need to take out quickly. You can leave the hacking zone. The progress bar depletes slowly over time, so it's not the end of the world. The second surprise is that shortly after the hacking is complete, several elite enemies will spawn on the top of this tower. You can use this truck for cover and just ignore them to focus on the ground enemies, including another chunger who's come to join the party. I would recommend this because once the final enemy on the tower dies, more enemies spawn in, which could overwhelm you if the chungers are still up. If you get pushed too much, just head back to the choke point and take everything out from there. In the final part of this section, there is a second relay to hack and new enemies, the outcasts. And that means the enemies we love to hate, the painful suicide bombers. The big danger with this section is getting flanked by enemies going inside the building. I would recommend leaving the hacking zone to take out any that do. After the relay is hacked, it's just a case of taking out the enemies that spawn. Again, fall back to the choke point if you get pushed, and even through the door to the previous section. Yet another section that is broken down into two parts. Approach the door and Sheffield will open it for you. While he is doing that, it's a good time to move back and get into cover. Take out one wave of outcasts before moving inside to tackle the second wave of hyenas. Fall back to outside the gate if you need more space to do so. Once these are clear, you can move to the second part of this section. As you approach the hovercraft, you will see a white shade case on the right which will activate once you get close. Move back to this jeep or even back to here so that you can take out all of the enemies that spawn and the shade skills. The jeep does provide a good position to take out enemies coming out of the hovercraft. Some enemies will spawn behind you, so keep an eye out for them. They're mainly rushers, so are fairly easy to take down. Once all of the enemies are downed, activate the EMP and then move to this location here. This is as far away as you can go while still progressing the activation. The shade skills will continue to attack you, but they don't really do that much damage. The reason why I like this location is that once the EMP is fully activated, after you've restarted it once, enemies will spawn from the hovercraft, including two chungers. From where you are, you can shoot them as they come down the ramp and have plenty of time to take them out before they get to you. This next section is the first really difficult section where it's easy to get overwhelmed and there is an instant kill area you must avoid. This is also a good point to mention the build I used and a change I made to it for this section. The build I'm using is the one I created a build guide on recently, called the only solo build you need in the Division 2. I cover everything about the build, including where to farm for gear in that video, but a quick synopsis of it is as follows. 3 pieces of Gilligar for the armour, health and armour regen, including a chill out mask so I can run 2 protection from elite mods on it. The Memento backpack for its all round awesomeness. Contractor's gloves for LMG weapon damage and damage to armour, and 1 piece of improvised gear for the extra mod slot. The build is rounded out with the Pestilence, my favourite weapon in the game and one of the best exotics. The build runs 5 protection from elite mods and survivalist specialisation for 70% damage reduction, which lets me run glass cannon for the amplified damage. For skills I run the Reviver Hive and a Striker drone, but for this next section I'm swapping out the drone for an assault turret which has more health and deals more damage. Now about that insta-kill area. When I ran into the hovercraft, my first instinct was to head upstairs to the small rooms so I'd have cover and a vantage point. Don't do this. Not only are the upper floors electrified, but when I went into the room on the left, I died instantly. And again after my revive hive kicked in, so stay on the ground floor for this section. This position by the jeep is a good place for the hyena delegation. With a turret on the roof of the jeep holding down the right side, it's fairly easy to pick off the enemies coming down the left by moving forward to this truck, and there is an ammo crate right behind you. You will face a few chunkers with this first wave, but it's definitely not overwhelming. Watch out for the occasional spawn out of the door on the right though. The outcasts are next, which is tougher for 2 reasons. Suicide bombers can catch you unawares and deal a lot of damage, which if it happens at the same time a hammer wielding tank spawns can spell trouble. These tanks absorb a ton of damage and hit very hard. It's fairly easy to kite the first one while taking out the other enemies. A second one spawns out of the door to the right of the jeep along with more enemies, which can make it a little hairy. The final wave is 2 rogue agents, which if you are running a protection from elite build is where you can relax. At the rear of the hovercraft a turret waits for you. The generator for this is to the right of the ramp, but I actually just picked off all the enemies from the relative safety of the hovercraft where there is an ammo crate and took down the generator after. Once you venture outside, mortar fire will start. These mortar shells hit very hard. I tried to find a safe spot from them, but even overhead cover seems to do nothing to prevent the damage. So in the end, the best tactic I found was to aggro enemies and then pull them back to the hovercraft. I did swap back to my drone for this so they could chase down enemies at distance. Once all of the ground enemies are dead, the mortars stop. Watch out for the 2 rocket launchers near the gates to the next section. The first generator can be found here and the second here, just to the left of the gate. Congratulations, you've made it to the boss fight, and the good news is that if you die from here on out, you will spawn back at this point. There are a few enemies to clear up outside of the boss arena, but nothing special, so do stock up on ammo, armor kits and grenades before going in. The big challenge with the boss fight is mortars, but I'm getting ahead of myself. When you first enter the arena, you'll be faced with some standard True Sun enemies. I like this piece of cover just to the left of the entrance. It has cover from 2 directions, including part that is above head height, so you can stand behind it and still be safe. It has no enemies spawning behind it, and it's close to the ammo crate. I swapped back to my assault turret for the boss fight, which I put down here to protect my flank. Once most of the wave has been cleared, the shit really hits the fan. You'll hear an announcement that General Anderson has left and the enemies are no longer messing about. This introduces 2 new challenges. The boss will enter a turret directly opposite where you are camping to the right of the entrance. Going over to that side is not a good idea unless you're looking for a well ventilated jacket. At the same time, mortar shells will start to rain down. Like before, there is no completely safe place to avoid these, but I did find one location where the mortars seem to miss more. Before I get onto this, I did make some changes to my build for the boss fight. The mortars hit so hard and there are so many enemies in a small arena that with glass cannon I was just taking too much damage. And because of that, I died on my first attempt, which meant that I had no memento stacks either. So for my second attempt, I swapped out my chest for a piece of badly rolled Gilligard I had on me with the talent Unbreakable, and my memento backpack for this piece of crap, which had the talent Adrenaline Rush. These 2 talents provided enough survivability for me to finish the mission, despite the attributes on the gear being rubbish. I don't mind the Palisades brand set with its armour on kill, but critical hit chance and critical hit damage are the way to go. I also put on the exotic overclocked gloves, but to be honest, I think my contractor's gloves would have been just as good. Back to those mortars. What I did was to use the cover to the left of the entrance, with my turret holding my flank, and danced around the mortar shells and took out enemies where I could. When things got too hot, I ran to this location at the back of the map. With head high cover on 2 sides and my turret helping deal damage to enemies, I could take down enemies here while avoiding the mortars. And I also find that when strafing with my back to the wall, the mortar shells often fell short, staggering me but not actually dealing any damage. Once I had thinned out the enemies a bit, and it was time to take out the first turret. To do this, you need to listen out for these callouts.
Suspending mortar fire. Launchers are overheating. Mortars cooling off.
A hatch will open after these callouts, revealing a weak point to be shot. Once destroyed, the boss will move to the second turret location, unless you're on console and he bugs out like he did on my second attempt and just stands in the middle, doing fuck all. There is a period now where there is no mortar fire in which you can focus on the waves of enemies who spawn in. Make sure to focus on any medics to make this part as short as possible and avoid standing in the turret fire. Eventually you will face a wave of warhounds. Once a few have been taken down, the mortars will start up again. Yippee! Continue to avoid the mortar shells while taking down remaining warhounds, new enemies that will spawn in. Somewhat surprisingly, there are a finite number of enemies that spawn in this section. So once they are all down, it's a pretty simple task to avoid the mortar shells and turret fire and break the final 2 weak points. The first appears on the left of the turret and the second on the right. Destroy both of these and you will no longer need to worry about the mortars again. But this is actually where the shit really hits the fan. The final part of the fight starts with standard enemies. Thin their ranks down enough and the boss will join the fight along with a quadcopter. Sorry, did I say a quadcopter? I clearly meant 2 fucking quadcopters and a shit ton of enemies. There is one safe spot from the quadcopters though, this container in the middle of the arena. The only problem though is that it's open at both ends. Get caught in a crossfire between 2 ground enemies and it's game over. So what you want to do is keep moving, using cover to avoid the quadcopters where you can and thinning down the ground enemies. Once all of the ground enemies are down, including the boss, it is fairly simple to cautiously chip away at the quadcopters from the safe spot. Then enjoy the cutscene with its rather poor animation and grab those exotics you will probably put straight into the stash and never use. Well done, Agent.